What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video on the channel. Apologies for my slight absence. I have been quite busy, but it is finally spring break, so you already know your boy is back on this YouTube grind. I'm going to be putting out videos as often and as fast as I can, so make sure you hit the subscribe button because you do not want to miss out on the videos we have got in store in the coming weeks. As regards to this video, however, we're going to be talking about the Seattle Kraken, and yes, I know, we haven't actually made a video talking about this team for around 7 to 8 months since my last NHL mock draft video, so I kind of wanted to make an updated projected lineup for this team, as ladies and gentlemen, the date is approaching us. We're finally getting to that point where we're going to have to start seriously talking about who's going to be protected and who isn't, and also just who we can expect the Kraken management to have their eyes on at this point in the season. Oh, and one more quick thing before we actually get onto the video, I just wanted to make sure you guys answer today's question of the day. Who are 3 players that you feel will be selected to serve as Seattle Kraken players next season, and why? I would love to hear what each and every single one of y'all has to say is. And yeah, without further ado, man, let's get right into the video. Alright, so the style of this video is going to be a little bit different. I know last time I created an actual lineup, but this time I'm going to be going through each NHL team in specific and just picking off one player per franchise, as I believe that's how it actually works in real life. Starting off though with the Anaheim Ducks, I've chosen Kevin Shattenkirk, the defenseman himself, and I feel like this might be a little bit of an obvious pick to some, but to others it'd be like, why wouldn't they just protect him off the start? But I thought the same thing, but they actually have Cam Fowler, Hampus Lindholm, and Josh Manson. So I feel like those are the only ones that they can really protect, leaving out Kevin Shattenkirk, who is 32, and I just feel like, he'd be a good addition on the blue line. He's a solid defenseman, played for the Lightning, and he recorded some points. He's a good offensive and defensive defenseman who can play both a shutdown role and can produce on the offense. So I feel like a solid pickup for the Seattle Kraken to start us off right here. Next up, we have the Arizona Coyotes, and I've chosen right winger Tyler Pitlick, as he should be available, as the Coyotes should be protecting young forwards such as Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz, Connor Garland, and Christian Dvorak. He's 29, and he's a reliable depth winger, 6'2", 200 pounds. He has decent size and brings a hard-working attitude to the game. He should be a good addition to the Kraken's checking lines, maybe playing on a second or third line, depending on how their forward core shapes up, whether they want to go for a more stronger defensive side or offensive side. That we will see, but I think that he would be a very good addition. Next up, though, we have the left winger from the Boston Bruins, Anders Bjork, and although he has had a bit of difficulty establishing himself within the Boston Bruins forward core, he could definitely be snapped up by the Kraken if left exposed in the expansion draft. The 24-year-old is still quite young, considered one of the Bruins' best prime prospects back in the day. He has good two-way skill and was projected as a potential top 6 forward when he was drafted. He might stand a better chance of reaching that goal with the Kraken. He is also quite cheap and overall a very good fit in my opinion. Next up from the Buffalo Sabres, I have chosen defenseman Colin Miller to be taken by the Seattle Kraken, and I still think that Colin Miller is a very underrated defenseman, despite having a very tough year this past season, getting only 11 points in 51 games played. People are really overlooking the fact that this man scored 41 points in 2017-18 on the Vegas Golden Knights. He was traded to the Sabres in June of 2019, where he kind of had a bit of a down year, but I feel like a fresh start could be very good for this guy, and if he was left unprotected, the Seattle Kraken should definitely look at acquiring this man on their blue line. Now, next up from the Calgary Flames, I have chosen Dylan Dube, and the Flames could face a difficult decision protecting forwards such as Michael Backlund, Sam Bennett, and obviously Dylan Dube. If they opt to protect Bennett over Backlund, the Swedes' $5.35 million annual average cap hit could prove to be too expensive for the Kraken, which is why I feel Dylan Dube in this scenario could be the odd man out, as I feel like Bennett is a bit more valuable than Dube is, so they would probably protect him anyways. And, I feel like although Dylan Dube is a very good, speedy two-way forward, he is quite inconsistent, so maybe a change would be best for him. Anyways, moving on to the Carolina Hurricanes, I have chosen defenseman Brady Shea. And I think at this point it's a bit of a given that the Hurricanes will protect their top defensemen Jacob Slavin, Brett Pesce, as well as Dougie Hamilton if they sign the pending UFA to a contract extension. And unless they do opt to protect all 4 blue liners, which is a bit unlikely, Brady Shea could be left exposed. He's 26 years old and he was acquired by the Hurricanes before last season's trade deadline. Honestly, just a good all-around defenseman, 6'3", 210 pounds, and can log more than 20 minutes of ice per game. He's exceeded 20 points, and he's very good defensively, could act as a very good third or fourth D-man on this team. Now, next up from the Chicago Blackhawks, I have chosen defenseman Calvin DeHaan. This one really came down to the wire between him and Connor Murphy, but since Brent Seabrook is now retired, the Hawks can protect an extra D-man, and Connor Murphy being 6'4", 210 pounds, and an overall good shot blocker is the obvious choice to protect. Now, next up from the Colorado Avalanche, I've chosen defenseman Devon Toews to be selected. If I'm being honest with you, the Avs could be losing a very good defenseman in this coming expansion draft. Erik Johnson's no-movement clause assures his protection, while the 2020 Calder Memorial Trophy winner Cale Makar and the very underrated Samuel Girard will also be protected, leaving out Devon Toews and Ryan Graves. But I feel like Toews holds a bit more value, so I feel like he will be the one to be selected in this scenario. All right, now moving on to the Columbus Blue Jackets, I have chosen Niku, the defenseman here. Another defenseman. I know we have been on quite a streak choosing these guys pick after pick, but there really wasn't anyone that stood out to me on the Columbus Blue Jackets forward core that they could take. Other than that, their defensemen, Zach Werenski and Seth Jones, are going to be protected, same as Vladislav Gavrikov, and their goalies, although I could see them taking either Merzlikins or Korpisalo. Both of them haven't been really having that good of a year. Obviously, Korpisalo just hasn't been playing that well, and Merzlikins has been injured for a majority of it. And there are just other better goalie options out there. So honestly, Niku was the choice for me in this situation. And speaking of goalies, funnily enough, next up I have Anton Khudobin on his way to the Kraken, and although I'm sure the Stars would have liked to keep Dobby, goaltender Ben Bishop's no-movement clause means that the Dallas Stars must protect him in the expansion draft. Unless Bishop waives it, the Stars will likely lose Khudobin to the Kraken, which is, I'm sure, a very tough blow. All right, next up we have the Detroit Red Wings, and I personally think that they will be taking Adam Ernie away from them. The Wings will be protecting young core forwards such as Dylan Larkin, Anthony Mantha, and Tyler Bertuzzi. Pending UFAs such as Bobby Ryan and Valtteri Filppula will also be exposed, but the Kraken will not waste an expansion pick on those players. Their focus instead could possibly be on Adam Ernie, which is why I'm going to stick with him. All right, now next up we have the Oilers, and quite possibly my most controversial pick just yet. I have chosen Jesse Puljujärvi. Yes, I know, and here's my reasoning why. I feel like the Oilers could opt to protect defenseman Oscar Klefbom, Darnell Nurse, Ethan Bear, and Caleb Jones in the expansion draft, which would mean they could only protect 4 forwards, potentially exposing Jesse Puljujärvi. And the reason I feel like the Kraken could potentially pick him is because although he has had a bit of a up and down to his career, he has had a bit of a bounce back year this year, and maybe a fresh start could be what is needed for this man to completely blossom into the player that he was once projected to become back in the 2016 draft when he was taken 4th or 5th overall or something like that. Crazy. Next up from the Florida Panthers, we have defenseman Markus Nutivaara, who is likely to be left exposed by the Panthers with Keith Yandle's no-movement clause ensuring he'll be protected. They won't leave Aaron Ekblad exposed, and they'll probably protect Mackenzie Weegar after signing him to a 3-year deal contract in November there. So I think that Markus Nutivaara is the odd man out and still a pretty solid option here for the Kraken to take. Next up from the Kings, we have Elias Anderson, and this one is a bit of a boring one, if I'm being honest, because I didn't really have any basis as to why I feel Anderson will get taken by the Kraken. Solely just a gut feeling and just a prediction, if I'm being honest here. For this one, let me know who you think the Kings will have to give up, because I can't really think of anyone or see anyone that stands out in particular. So Elias Anderson is my guess. All right, this next one from the Wild is very interesting. I have Jordan Greenway, and although he is having a breakout season, I just don't think that the Wild, despite playing really well, can protect all of their players. They must protect Ryan Suter, Jared Spurgeon, and Yona Brodin, as they all have no movement clauses. They could also be unwilling to leave blue liner Matt Dumba exposed in the draft. That could leave a young forward such as Jordan Greenway available, as they already have to protect guys like Kirill Kaprizov, Kevin Fiala, and many other forwards. So I feel like this guy could be the odd man out here. Just a very unlucky scenario here, as he is having a very good year fighting for a spot. I could be wrong here. Also, let me know in the comments who you think from the Wild will be selected, as there are a couple of pretty good options available. Next up, we have from the Montreal Canadiens, Jake the Snake Allen. And despite the fact that Allen is having a very strong year backing up Carey Price does have a no movement clause, which means that they have to leave Allen unprotected. And I feel like with this, he is a very strong goaltender, much better than guys like Korpisalo and Merzlikins, which is, carrying on from my, proving my point that there are other goalies that are available. I feel like Allen will be taken by the Kraken as a potential second or third goalie. There's still one more goalie that I feel like the Kraken could look at taking, but Allen is definitely one of those three. Next up from the Nashville Predators, I have chosen Luke Cunnin, and the Preds are expected to protect defensemen Roman Josi, Ryan Ellis, Matthias Ekholm, and Dante Fabro. The Kraken could pry a decent forward, but Luke Cunnin, who recently signed a 2-year, $4.6 million contract with the Predators, could be in their sights as well. Just a very solid guy. I think they stole him off of the Minnesota Wild, so to see him go this soon would be a huge blow, but he's definitely someone that I could see on the radar for the Kraken. Next up from the New Jersey Devils, I have chosen Miles Wood, and despite the fact that the Devils could leave defenseman PK Subban exposed, his $9 million annual average value through 2021, 2022, and declining production could definitely scare off the Kraken, and I doubt that they would take him. So the expansion club could definitely turn to a more affordable option, such as Miles Wood. That would definitely be the more logical pick from my perspective as well. Alright, now next up from the New York Islanders, I've chosen Nick Leddy, and I would be quite surprised if the Kraken were to pass up on Leddy if he were left exposed. A solid defensive piece that can also put up good offensive numbers, including 3 consecutive 40-plus point seasons. Although a bit on the decline at $5.5 million, it's only for one more year, so they could possibly use this to their advantage by flipping him at the deadline for a younger asset. Alright, now next up from the New York Rangers, I've chosen Brendan Lemieux, and the Rangers here could face a difficult choice between protecting center Brett Howden and left winger Brendan Lemieux, but with enough left wingers already in Artemi Panarin, Chris Kreider, and 2020 first overall pick Alexis Lafreniere, Lemieux could be the odd one out here. Son of former NHL winger Claude Lemieux, Brendan is a gritty, agitating forward just like his father, but lacks his dad's scoring touch, and he only has 36 points in 131 games with the Rangers and Winnipeg Jets. Nevertheless, he's effective in a checking line role. Alright, now next up we have the Ottawa Senators, and I have chosen Chris Tierney, and the reason for this is because the Senators just have so many good young pieces, and as a result, they could be forced to expose one of their older veterans. Tierney could be among one of those players. He was coming off what could have been a very good 40 to 50 point season with the Sens last year before the pandemic hit, so he could be a decent option. Alright, now next up we have Shane Gostisbehere from the Philadelphia Flyers, and the Ghost, don't get me wrong, has struggled with head coach Alain Vigneault's system throughout the past season or so, but this man used to be an absolute stud. As a defenseman, he put up 65 points in 2018, so I could definitely see him turning it around with a new team. Although he is a bit pricey at $4.5 million, if I were the GM of the Kraken, I would definitely be willing to take the gamble with this player. Next up from the Pittsburgh Penguins, we have Teddy Bluger, and the Kraken will be in desperate need of reliable penalty killers, and although they could go for someone like Brandon Tanev, he is having a very good year this year, so I doubt the Penguins expose him, leaving Bluger as the odd man out. Still a good cheap option at $765K annually, he'd be a cost-effective signing for the Kraken. Alright, now next up from the San Jose Sharks, we have Dylan Gambrell. And finding young, affordable players will be important for the Kraken beyond their inaugural campaign. San Jose Sharks center Dylan Gambrell could be among those on their radar entering the expansion draft. Gambrell will earn $700K this season and becomes an RFA with arbitration rights this summer. Re-signing him won't bust the Kraken's budget. Alright, so next up from the Tampa Bay Lightning is a guy who's been on the trade block, been put on waivers. He's been through it all. It's Tyler Johnson, and not because he's a bad player necessarily. He's actually quite good, but the problem is that the Tampa Bay Lightning are just too good, and he's just not good enough to crack the lineup, and they just don't have enough money to keep him. This is an obvious choice. He's $5 million annually, but that shouldn't take away from the fact that you are literally getting a solid top 6 forward in Johnson. If he's available, you take him. Next up, we have the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I have chosen Travis Dermott. The Leafs are likely to protect 3 defensemen in Morgan Rielly, Jake Muzzin, and TJ Brodie in the expansion draft. That could make Dermott a tempting target for the Kraken. He will complete his entry-level contract this season, becoming an RFA without arbitration rights. He should be an affordable short-term signing who could flourish with the expansion team. Alright, now next up we have my own Vancouver Canucks, and although it may seem a little far-fetched now, I am still going with Braden Holt before my pick. I think that although Holtby has struggled with the Canucks this season, I still just don't see them taking anyone else because, let's be honest here, the Canucks are crap, and if I'm being even more honest, the other goaltenders available are also quite terrible as well. Regardless, I still think that they'd have faith in Holtby for the 1 year left on his contract. It's low risk, and I think they would take him anyways. Next up from the Washington Capitals, we have who could possibly be the Kraken's best player, TJ Oshie. The 34-year-old grew up just north of Seattle, so he'll be a natural fit. I think that despite his age, he can still remain a consistent player as he tallied 49 points in 69 games last season. The only concern being his contract. He'd be signed until the end of 2024-2025 with an average annual cost of $5.75 million. Still, the Kraken could benefit from Oshie's experience and leadership during the early years. Alright, now last but certainly not least, we have the Jets defender Sami Niku. A solid depth piece right here. He's worth less than $1 million, only sitting at $750K, I believe, for his next year's salary. So a good cheap depth option for the Kraken here if he is available. So yeah, nothing really else to say. If I'm being honest, I think that's going to end it off, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you agree with my list, be sure to let me know. If you disagree, tell me, what would you change? Which players would you keep? Which ones would you change? I would love to hear what each and every single one of y'all has to say is. And yeah, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Hit that bell because we have a ton of new videos coming, and I can't wait to share them with you all. And let me know if you have any desired videos you'd like me to do in the future. I would love to know what you guys think. Anyways, with that being said, thank you guys so much. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.